Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Coin-x and you are welcome to Coin-xDaProducer. I'm glad to have you guys back in this amazing year 2022, and today we are going to look at Maximus and its basic compression tips. Yes, we'll be treating Maximus. We'll be getting to know a little more about this amazing plugin built in FL Studio. And as you can see, this is Maximus. So this video will basically be about what all these knobs and bands and displays are and how to use them during your production process. This video, I will be focusing more on the compressor section, which is this area right here, so that we will have understanding on how to work with the envelopes to create a compressor curve, and as well learning how to work with the attack, the release times, the look ahead features, and the soft clipping features as well. So the problem I had, and I believe majority also have experienced, is the first time when you see Maximus, it's a little bit complicated and confusing, because it's totally different from the traditional compressor we all are familiar with. So, but this video, I believe, will help you clear those confusion and get you on the path of using this amazing plugin to fix issues and control issues in your production process. And before I continue, I believe every one of you already have a basic knowledge on how a compressor works and what it does, So having said that out of the way, I will kick off with mainly demonstration on how you can start using Maximus. So sit back and enjoy. But please, if you're a returning subscriber, I genuinely appreciate you. I want to thank you guys for supporting this little community of mine, and not only for me, it's for all of us, where we can get more information and improve our skill and grow. But if you're new to the channel, please do help me by subscribing. It helps a lot. Let's dive right into it. So let's start with this section, the compressor curve window. And what I will be doing here is to show you exactly how I use Maximus to control peaks and to reduce all those frequencies poking out here and there, to have a more glued or rounded output during my production process. As you now know, this section is called the compressor curve window. Below it is the types of compressors inside this Maximus. Now, looking at the tag name, looking at how it's labeled, low, mid, high, that is basically what it takes care of in any signal you throw into it. Now, this low compressor band takes care of the low informations in that signal. This one takes care of the mid, and same with this one, takes care of the highs. And now the master is a little bit different. The master is a sum of all these other bands, and to be sure that yes, it really takes care of the tags on it, like the low, the mid, and the high. When you activate this solo, it automatically auditions it so that you can confirm or hear exactly what is going on. So I will preview the song for this demonstration so that you can also see, you can also hear and understand what's going on.
What manner of man is Jesus? He did it all for you. And he paid it all for you.
So as you can see, when I toggled in between all these different bands, individual bands, you notice that you can hear what is happening. When I clicked on the low, it isolated the low in frequencies, same with the high and the mid. But the moment I switched to the master, everything played together. So that is to say that the master is a sum of all the three bands. Below is a knob, stereo separation knob, which I believe you know what stereo separation is. When you take it all the way right, you are making it mono. When you take it all the way left, you're making it stereo, which is a very handy tool to have in a plugin. It's a very good one they did by adding this in this Maximus. Now, without wasting much of our time, I will go straight into the demonstration to show you exactly how I take care of audio when using Maximus. Now, I'm gonna use this as a mix bus compressor, for example, and by so doing, I will show you how I set the threshold and how I engage the compressor to determine how much gain reduction I want. So the first thing I do is to play the song, and as I'm playing the song, I'm observing what is going on here to know the maximum peak, which is around here, as you can see. So now I will also consider, what do I want to achieve? What am I actually using this for? So in this case, I'm using it just to glue everything together. I'm sorry, I'm using a already mastered file for this, but it's also the same, not really the same in the sense that it's advisable to do this on a mastered work. No, it's the same. What I mean is the process I'm showing you when you use it on your mix during the mixing section, or when you're about to render and you want to glue everything together. Now, what I normally do is I make a point, and I usually make this point around -17 dB. It works well, and that is how I land it at 17 dB. Pardon me, I'm trying to get it exactly. How am I seeing what I'm trying to do? When you look up here on the hint panel, you see 15, 16, 17. There you are, 17 dB. So when I make this point by right clicking, the next thing I do is to go to this brick wall limiting line over here. Then I will click this point and drag it down. But one thing I must tell you, sometimes it follows the grid, and sometimes you want to make very minute change or gain reduction, but for the fact is, following this grid, it's hinders you from achieving that. So how do you fix this issue? You hold down your Alt on the keyboard, and then you now slide it to the amount you want. Alt just takes off the grid, Alt just takes off the grid. Then another thing you can also do is to snap to grid, take it off. When you take it off, it doesn't obey it. So it's either you use the Alt or you click this magnet symbol or icon here, so that you can freely determine the amount of gain reduction you want. So let's preview. Okay, let's say that is the amount I want to reduce from it. So the next thing we are going to talk about now is the attack and the release. Now, we've talked about this section, the compressor curve window, which is the section where you set your point and then determine your gain reduction. Below it is the types of compressors and the master, and the solo button, stereo separation button. Now, the next is the attack and the release. But before I continue with this attack and release, there is something I just want to share with you about this. is my own personal approach to this, and believe you me, it has been working for me. I might be wrong, but like they said, there is no set on stone law. If it works for you, then it's fine. If it sounds good, then it's fine. So what I normally do is I try to emulate the shape of these peaks. I try my gain reduction to have the same shape. As you can see over here, the gain reduction, you see how these places are there and suddenly it went down. If you want, the shape is similar to this peak here, it's similar to it, and at this point it's okay for me. Like over here, there are little corrections. You can see the attack. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Now over here, you notice that the gain reduction started a little bit after the peak hits. That's not really what I want. And what this actually means is that the attack is slow. The compressor is not attacking the signals you want it to take care of fast enough. That is why the attack and the release is very important feature in any compressor. When you set it right, then the compressor will handle what you're using it for rightly. The attack and release, they are very, very important in any compressor. So considering this situation here, how do I fix this? In this case, I want the compressor to attack as fast as possible all those peaks and release them fast enough so that it doesn't hold it and affect the other oncoming signals, which I don't really want the compressor to really affect. So how to handle that? I set fast attack to like 40 to 50 milliseconds, 0.40 to 0.50 milliseconds. Yeah, in FL Studio, if you really want to gradually get a number you want, I usually hold control to slow down the counting. It's a lot faster for me and easier for me to achieve that. Now 0.50 milliseconds, and the release time, I usually set it based on the display here. I watch what is going on. Then I also want it to stop immediately when the peak I am trying to control stops. So let's take a listen while I set it. I think at that point I am very okay. Then I also observed something. As you can see, some places the attack is still a little bit slow, so I need to take care of that. I need to roll it down more. I think I'll leave it at 0.05 milliseconds and see how it handles that. Yeah, I think I'm good. So now that is how I take care of the attack and the release. And please remember, this varies. First of all, it depends on the genre you're working on, and also it depends on the kind of effect you want to achieve. Okay, so after this, the next will be what's the threshold and the saturation and the ceiling, all these things you're seeing there, what they do, what you can use it for, the pre and the post, and other knobs. That will be the next thing we'll be treating. So just to recap, in this section, what we talked about is this window, which is called the compression curve window, and that is where you set your threshold and determine your gain reduction. And remember to turn off your snap to grid if maybe you in a situation whereby you want to reduce just a little bit and the grid is not allowing you to determine that amount, you know. So remember to turn it off to set it, you know. And we talked about these types of compressor in Maximus: the low, the mid, the high, how to audition them, and also explained that whatever you do to each, however you approached one, is applicable to others. The same process, whatever you do here is still the same way you do it here, you know, no different approach. So if you learned it with working on master, you can also handle that of a low. So let's say, for example, we want to take care of the low. So I will just do the same. I'll click on low, solo. Now I'm listening. Okay, let's say on the low I want to take care of the kicks because the kick is hitting too much. So what do? Now the kick is around here. I make my point somewhere around there by right clicking because I only want the kick to be affected. Now I've made my point. Now I play while I listen. So as I'm listening, I'm bringing down this line to determine how much gain reduction I want, which is actually the compression. So let's do that. That's okay. And as you can see, the gain reduction starts immediately. The kick starts and releases it the moment the kick stops, which is exactly what I want. So it's all by taste and by choice. If you want to take out more, compress it more, you pull it down, you know. But in this situation, what I normally do is also a bonus in this video. On this low end information, remember, it is not only the kick that is playing, because I am working on the entirety of the mix, you know, the whole thing, the stereo out. So what I normally do is, this is the point where I take it all the way mono, because I like to make my kick, my bass, and the low end information to the center, to the mono, you know. So I take it all the way right to make it mono. And why do we even do this? We do this to have clearer mix, because practically it's not really advisable to allow your sub informations to reside on the side. But when you center your kick, your bass, and your sub, it gives room for other elements, you know, to take up their places in the frequency spectrum and allowing your song or your mix to breathe, you know. So this is what I normally do on the low. Now let's go to the mid. You just do the same thing. Pick a point. Minus 17 dB. Then you determine your amount of compression. And remember not to do it too much. So on the high, you do the same thing. And remember, what I'm actually doing is controlling the peaks. You go on the high. If there is too much peaks, determine a point and you take those peaks down, so that at the end of the day, you have a rounded output, well controlled and glued mix, you know, which definitely will sound good and professional. So just controlling those minor peaks on the high, more controlled and more pleasant. Just to also add, remember, whatever you do, try not to overdo them and judge finally with your ears. So that is it for this. The look ahead knob, this feature here enables Maximus to analyze any signal coming in before the compressor affects it, and it's determined by how much you set it. But at default, 10 milliseconds or less is okay for me. I'm trying to set it to 10 right now. Yeah, at this point is okay. And remember, it depends on the kind of material you're working on, the kind of audio you're working on. But most of the times, going with the default settings is still pretty cool. It's set at 2 milliseconds. Now that is that for the look ahead. Then the next thing we will talk about is threshold and the ceiling. What these two knob does, but first of all, I'll start with the threshold. The threshold, to explain this, I need to play this the wave, so pardon me. Okay, let's say after we must have set our attack, our release, determine our points, and I forgot also to tell you when determining this point is more like setting your ratio, you know, in Maximus. So when you must have determined that, looking at the analyzer here, the display panel here, this threshold helps you to like smoothen it out. Yes, it helps you to like smoothen it out, and when you take it right, it smoothens it out, just like when you're having a soft knee or a hard knee. So this is more like smoothing it out, and this is more like a hard one. So this helps to smoothen it out. How I use it is I take it to this point, judging with my ear as well, because you can easily hear the impact or the effect it's making when you critically listen. So that is that for the threshold, while the ceiling is the saturation. That's analog texture, but there is something you must put into consideration while trying to add saturation. The tips here is, when adding this saturation, make sure that as you can see on the display menu, as you can see these two lines, which is determined by the threshold and the ceiling, make sure that the tip of your peaks on your signal, which is this thing we are seeing right here, make sure it falls in between it. Make sure it doesn't go above it, you know, like something like this. No, it will be too much. And finally, you judge with your ear, you know. So let me demonstrate and explain better. So right now it's okay. The white area, make sure that this pink, the white area doesn't go above it. The peak of the white area doesn't go above this, so it should be in between the pink line. So that's one simple tip I'll drop here. The reason for that is so that you don't add too much saturation to your entire mix, and meanwhile you will also hear it when you're doing too much. So the takeaway advice here is less is better, you know. Don't overdo things, and finally judge with your ear. And no matter what you do, always pay attention to this display panel here to know what is happening visually. So that is it about the threshold and the saturation. So and over here is just the low, and this has to do with when you're working with the bands to determine amount of low, amount of high. Like over here, when you activate the low, yeah, this determines how much low and how much high you are adding. You know, so it's so simple to understand. And what again? In some cases you might want to engage the linear phase. Linear phase helps you not to go into things like phase issue and stuff like that, you know, which sometimes affects your entire production, and it's sometimes recommended to turn it on, you know, especially when it has to do with trying to give a character to your entire mix, trying to shape a tone to your mix. So that's what I can say about that. And this is low cut, which I believe you understand what it means. So over here is the monitor, this is the band, and this is to activate it, and this is to deactivate it. So basically that's it. The sustain button here, I don't usually use this. So like I said, the video is about to show you how I use Maximus. So I'm not gonna show you something I've not tried out. That would be so unfair. So what I've actually showed you guys here is actually all I do when I'm using Maximus. And remember, Maximus also can be used as a limiter to master your song, but I'm not gonna talk about that here. It can also be used as a de-easing plugin, which I'm not also gonna talk about it here, because I already told you this video is just to show you how I use it when it comes to compressing your entire mix or compressing individual instruments. So that is it about Maximus on how I use it. So to recap, over here is the Compressor Curve window. This is the place where you set your points, which is more like setting your ratio. You set it by right clicking to make a point, and like I said, I usually start with minus 17 dB, and after you set that, you can now use this brick wall limiting at 0 dB to determine how much of gain reduction you want to apply. So setting that, this is where you determine how much reduction, and as you do whatever you do, you watch your monitor to know what's going on. Secondly, we talked about the stereo separation. When you are working on the low, make it all the way mono, because is better and advisable to make it mono. Then for your mid instruments, you can make them a little bit stereo. It all depends on the taste, on your choice, on what you want to achieve. Same on the high, and on the master, I don't really do anything regarding the stereo separation knob on the master. Now over here is the threshold and the ceiling. The threshold is the knob that is used to like smoothen out the gain reduction. It's more like your knee. When you go all the way right, when you tweak it right, you are softening it. When you tweak it left, you're making it hard. Then the ceiling is just to add that saturation texture to your mix. And remember, when you're adding it, make sure that the audio signal, the peak, doesn't go above the pink line. Now the attack and the release, how I set them is I try as much as possible to mimic the peak of the signal coming into the Maximus, more like mirroring this peak on the gain reduction, so that the attack comes in, the compressor comes in fast and releases the signal fast enough without affecting the next incoming signal. And what next? The look ahead is always advisable to set it. I love setting it at 10 milliseconds so that the plugin reads ahead of time the signal coming in before any processing that is going on with the plugin applies on that signal. What again did we talk about? So basically that's just it. Over here is the band, the monitor, and here the low to determine the how much low you are adding, how much high you are adding as well. The linear phase knob to activate it or deactivate it. This is low cut, which I believe you guys know. So that will be it about Maximus. I know I might not really explain it so well to you to understand, but any point you got confused, just simply rewind the video and go through it. But as you're watching it, I advise you to practice it as you're watching it so that you fully understand how the whole plugin works. So anyways, thank you guys for the time, and keep practicing, keep making music, stay safe, stay blessed. Catch you guys in the continuation of this, because I'll be using this to master a song, and I will also share that idea with you guys. Peace, bye.